Hello, everyone, and welcome to this ninth evening of the Festival of Europe. Tonight, we will be exploring the wonders of Portugal. My name is Ben Green, and I'll be your moderator as we travel with Rick and Christina. And now, without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to a great connoisseur of Portuguese culture, Rick Steves. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening, Ben, and thank you so much for the good introduction, and welcome to everybody who's tuning in to our festival. As Ben mentioned, we've got nearly 5,000 households tuned in right now, and we're going to be meeting right here every night until the end of the month at 6 o'clock. And tonight, our focus is Portugal. So it's just so great to have you with us so we can get together and celebrate our love of travel. Of course, during this festival, we're promoting our tours to Portugal and our tours all across Europe. But more fundamentally than that, we're promoting travel. And you can get a guidebook, you can take another tour, you can go over and just wander around without any information if you want. It doesn't matter as long as you can get what you need to get over there and turn your travel dreams into smooth and affordable reality. So right now, I'm just going to thank you and get this show started. Want to remind you, this whole travel festival is kind of coming out of COVID in an interesting way. For 30 years, in January, we would have a big tour alumni party in Edmonds, and we would invite all the people who took our tours the year before. We'd come together and we'd have 5 parties over the course of 2 days, and it just was a blast. We'd get together, amassing of the scrapbooks. We'd fly 100 guides in from Europe, and it was a week-long celebration of what we called a test drive, a tour guide. We would rent out every venue in town, and the guides would be on the stage telling about their countries and enthusing about what they love to teach. We'd also be having our roundtable discussions so our guides could get together and debate the ins and outs of every itinerary so we could break from this annual huddle and know that we've got the best organized tours in the business. Well, since COVID hit, we haven't done any of that, obviously, and now we're back on the road. Last year, we took 25,000 people around Europe. This year, we're planning on taking 30,000 people around Europe on about 1,200 different tours, 40 different itineraries, and we are celebrating our tour program with a 20-day series of classes and events like this. I do want to remind you that while we'd love to have you on one of our buses, there are plenty of alternatives, and I am fundamentally an independent traveler. I love writing these guidebooks so people can equip themselves with all the behind-the-scenes know-how from our tours and do the tour yourself. And, you can pick up this Portugal guidebook and you can do anything that Christine and I will be talking about. The trick is to equip yourself with good information and expect yourself to travel smart, and you will, like this family here in the Czech Republic. We've got a guidebook for every corner of Europe, and I'm proud to announce that our Portugal guide is hot off the press, researched and updated after COVID, so we know what was the impact of COVID, and now we've got our guidebooks right up to date so you can travel smartly. Travel smartly, that means know your limits. That means know how to avoid the pitfalls of traveling without too much information in a day and age when it's quite crowded and it's quite expensive, and every little mishap that you do can be costly. You don't want to be a victim of the Louvre, as this shot is nicknamed. Well, we've got about 150 guides, most of them Europeans. You've met a lot of them during this festival. And today we're going to meet Christina Duarte. Here's our schedule. As Ben mentioned, we're 7 days into our schedule now. The next 3 nights are going to be hosted by Cameron Hewitt, and he's basically my right-hand man here with our guidebook writing and our tour program. And Cameron is going to meet with fellow guides Cullen Mayers tomorrow for Scotland, and then Katka from Czech Republic for the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland. And then later on, they're going to go to Croatia and Slovenia, and Cameron will be with his good friend Tina Hiti. I'll be back on Saturday with Sicily, and then we're going to Turkey together. Next Monday, a very important Monday night travel, and that is the ethics of travel in a warming world. I've just been working on that with my COO here, Craig, And we've got an exciting program that explains the impact of travel and how we can mitigate the carbon we create when we travel and travel in a carbon neutral way. And we'll also explore some of the other ethical issues of travel. So that's going to be a very important and informative evening. And you're welcome to join us on Monday, the 23rd for that. And then we have one more week going to France, Ireland, Germany, Netherlands, Greece, and a finale of Italy. And we'll finish off with our grand finale episode on the 30th on that Monday. Remember, every week we're giving away a tour. Yesterday, we gave away a tour. Spencer Swank from Michigan. He was one of a lot of people who put their name in the virtual bucket, and he won. And we'll be interviewing him and showing how he chose between London, Paris, Rome, and Istanbul for his free tour. Now we have a new series of options to get your name in the bucket. If you entered last week, you can enter once every week. Every family, every household can enter once every week, and then we'll draw the name out of the virtual bucket on Monday. So you'll learn how to get your name in that contest, because tomorrow we will send you, 24 hours after this event, we'll send you an email that has all the links to places we talk about, all the FAQs, and important how to enter the tour. I just entered, just for kicks, to see how complicated it was. You can enter in 3 seconds. It's just bam, 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 and you are in there. So hope you can play that game. We do want to remind you, not everybody can win a free tour, but anybody can book a tour. And if you do during the festival, you will enjoy $100 savings. Just enter the promo code. Now we're going to go to Portugal. And while we'll be talking about our tour, I want to remind you, everything we're talking about here, you can do on your own. That's what the Portugal guidebook is for. You get the guidebook when you take the tour, but you can also get the guidebook and go on your own. Of course, the Iberian Peninsula is shared by Spain and Portugal. I believe the longest stable border in Europe is the border that separates the Portuguese and the Spanish people. You can see it there. And a lot of people get to Spain and they don't quite get to Portugal. I think that's a big mistake. And I just love thinking of Portugal as a destination in itself. We have a lot of itineraries. Here's our spaghetti map with 40 different routes around Europe. And you can see the Portugal route over there in the far lower left-hand corner from Lisbon to Porto. And this is it. This is what we figure is the best 12 days for you to enjoy Portugal. Again, you can do it on one of our tours, or you can do it on your own. You'd fly into Lisbon, 3 nights in Lisbon, then you'd go down to Évora in Alentejo, that's cowboy country in Portugal, and then up to Óbidos, and from that beautiful little perfectly preserved medieval walled town, you can take some side trips to Nazaré and Alcobaça, and then on your way to Coimbra, you'll stop in Batalha and Fatima, 2 very important cities for the culture and the religion of Portugal. And then you get to the university town of Portugal, Coimbra. It's kind of the Oxford or the Cambridge of Portugal, an amazing place, a wonderful student kind of energy. And then we go to the romantic Douro Valley, famous for its port wine and the wonderful little farms that produce those grapes. And we'll go down the river and finish in Porto. Porto is the second city of Portugal after Lisbon, and we finish there with 2 days. And that is an amazing itinerary. And to learn more about that, we are going to be joined right now by my good friend, Cristina Duarte. Cristina, are you there?
Olá, olá, boa noite.
Nice to see you. Boa noite. That's
Boa
right.
noite.
It's 2 o'clock for you, isn't it?
Yes, so I don't know if it is boa noite or bom dia.
Well, if you're with us, it's a bon dia, I'll tell you that.
All right.
Thank you
Let's
for
do-
staying up late or getting up early, I don't know. But you reminded me, Portugal is 1 hour different than the rest of continental Europe. You're in the
Yes.
same time as London, right? You're Greenwich
Yes.
Mean Time.
Yes.
So it's 2 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, and we're thankful you're with us. How long have you been leading tours for Rick Steves Europe?
I started leading as a local guide in 2003, but actually in 2010, when Heart of Portugal was launched, I started to do tour guiding for the Heart of Portugal.
Okay, so you've been working with us for 20 years, and back then
Yes.
I think we shared Spain and Portugal together on the itinerary. And I
Yes.
know you've been my go-to guide for 20 years easily with the guidebook as
Yes.
I come into town, and you help me work on the book. And we've had such a good relationship over these years. I remember
Yes.
I thought, Cristina, you would be great to join our team and take our groups around. So I'm so thankful that you're traveling with us. How many
I
tours-
am thankful. Thank you to you. Obrigada. I have
Obrigada.
been
How many
thankful.
tours did you do last year?
Nine tours.
9 tours. Do you get tired of doing the same 12 days around and around?
Not at all, because well, the places are always the same, of course, but they change because of the light. They change because of the weather, and mainly every tour we have 20 and something people that make the tour different from one to the other.
You know, I have the same experience. For 25 years, I was leading tours, and for many years, it was the same Best of Europe in 3 weeks tour.
Yes.
And it was always different because I was working with different people, and I would
Yes.
see it through their eyes, and I would share it through their experience. And it was always fresh for me because my mission was to give them the best time.
Exactly, and the questions are different, the interests are different, so it's a totally different tour, although we are doing the same itinerary.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, well, let's jump right in, and we want to remind people that we'll have some question and answer period later. So if you have any questions for Christina, you can ask them in the Q&A widget there. And Christina, I've got some beautiful port. Oh, baby.
Okay, let me join you. It's also some port wine. Yeah.
What do you say
Saúde.
what do you say?
Saúde.
Saúde.
Yes, which
Is that
is
like salud? Is to your
Saúde.
health?
Yes.
So I've
So-
got this is a port, it says 10 years old tawny. Now, a tawny is basically a port that's like between 10 and 20 years in the bottle. Is that right?
Tawny is a port that can age 10, 20, and many years, but the difference is that it's aged in oak.
In oak.
So a tawny is an oak.
Mm.
And a ruby has not that much of a touch of the oak, so that's why it keeps the ruby color. And
So
the
this
tawny
is-
gets more brown of the oak.
And I know there are dry ports, but I like a sweet port. This is a digestive. You would generally drink it after dinner, but this is my little guilty pleasure. I can have this sweet wine anytime. And it's
Yes.
a fortified wine. What does it mean when you
Yes.
say a fortified wine?
It means that to stop the fermentation, you add brandy to the fermentation. And like that, you keep the sugars, which are natural sugars. And that's why it's so sweet, because you don't leave the sugars to run away with the fermentation.
Okay, but I think it's like 20% alcohol, so I should be careful.
Yes, it is. It is 20% like a liqueur.
There's a lot of people running around late at night in Lisbon with a big smile on their face after drinking some.
Especially
right.
here.
Okay, with that, I'm ready to do a little traveling. And thank you again. And, I love this shot here. What's going on here, Christina?
Oh, we are having fun and having a great coffee at the bar of Brasileira historical bar in Lisbon. And in front of us, we have the very good and famous pastel de nata.
Oh, look at that. And that puts me in a good mood. Coffee and one of these pastries, the pastel de nata. We'll learn more about that later.
Yes.
I'm having a little cup of coffee. I think you were teaching me it's a bica, right?
Bica, yes.
Bica. And this is where the poets would hang out in the old days, in this old town coffee shop in Lisbon. There's so much pride in Portugal. It's so fun to travel and pick up the pride. And I like to be a cultural chameleon. If people are drinking coffee out of a little tiny cup, that's what I'm going to do. If people are dunking their cookies in their coffee, I'm going to do that. If they're drinking fortified wine, I'm going to do that. And when I have a guide like you, I will know how to be a temporary local. Now, here we are in Lisbon, and Lisbon is a city that it really has 3 basic zones, doesn't it? Tell me about the old center of Lisbon, how it's designed.
Well, this specific one is the oldest part of the city, is the medieval, what we see is the medieval part, but actually is where was the Roman side, then Moorish, and then medieval, and it's called Alfama. So we are on the top of Alfama, the hill, and we see this labyrinthic little streets. Actually, we don't see them because they are so close that the only thing is the rooftops.
And you said it very interesting. It was the Roman birthplace of the city, and then it was the Moorish city when the Moors came in from Africa.
Yes.
And after
yes.
that, it was the medieval center of the city, labyrinthine. But then in the 1500s, there was a terrible earthquake, and it created a tidal wave and a fire, and it just devastated the city. Tell us about what happened on that day.
Well, it was 9 o'clock in the morning of the 1st November, 1755. Everybody was in church. And of course, it was a calamity because it was very strong. And so basically the city center was totally destroyed, and they restored it, leaving some parts with the scars of the time, like this church here, that the arcades that we see, the Gothic Church of Carmel, or the slide that we were before with the Church of San Domingos. But basically, the idea was to create in the city center the only flat part of the city, this square, Praça do Comércio. Basically, what we wanted was to create a cosmopolitan city in the only flat part of the city. So a wow square when the boats were arriving to the city of Lisbon.
So when you look at the center, the map of Lisbon, you see a grid plan that is earlier than most cities' grid plans, because before that it was a tangled medieval town, but with the destruction of the earthquake and the fire and the tsunami, you have a blank slate, and the leader, the dictator, the general Marquês de Pombal was given authority to rebuild the place, and today that's what shapes the character of this city. And uniform buildings and a grid plan in the center with the tangled zones on the hills on either side. One thing I love about Lisbon is the decorative sidewalks. Tell us about that mosaic work here.
These mosaics, we call it calçada, so it mainly says that it's shoed, because it is, as we pave the whole city, it's the technique comes back from the Roman times and is basic, which is putting two stones together. But it was pretty monotonous. So since the 1500s, for created a more beautiful atmosphere, well, they were started to create on the squares and main streets beautiful designs. This one, for instance, it looks like an optical illusion of the river.
I'm getting seasick when I look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's totally flat, but gives us this optical illusion.
Wow. All right. Now, when we're in the center of town, a lot of people like San Francisco for its characteristic trolleys on all the hills. Well, Portugal feels like San Francisco's funky little old-fashioned sister, because you've got the same kind of hills, you've got wonderful winding streets, and you've got these great trolleys. And I just love to get on a trolley and cruise through the town. And then you can take a trolley basically anywhere you want to go in the town. Here, we're gathering at the castle, and you're explaining the probably the importance of the city through the ages. And when we look at the Alfama that we were talking about, this is a place where you can find the traditional character. And if you know where to look in the Alfama or in other old quarters, late at night, you can find a wonderful musical tradition that just is spontaneous. It's popular for the tourists, but it would be there if there were no tourists, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes. Fado makes part of our life. Fado means fate, and it is a spontaneous singing, intimate singing, with no microphone, as you can see. It comes directly from the heart. So that's why we always ask, we are always in silence, because we want to hear the words, but especially to listen to music with accompanied by the two guitars, the Portuguese guitar, that is the one to the right, the round shape, and the Spanish guitar, or the guitar.
What is the word? There's a word in Portuguese. What is it? Duende is flamenco. Sauda is
saudade. Saudade.
What does that mean?
Nostalgia. The longing. Yes, the longing, the nostalgia. So this missing. I have a friend that has the perfect word for this. She says that it is the presence of the absence.
The presence of the absence. I love that. And when
Me too, because it's actually that.
I don't even understand the sorrow. I don't even understand the language, but I sit there and I'm completely enwrapped by it. It is just a beautiful opportunity. There's a museum we can go to about the Fado, F-A-D-O. There's plenty of restaurants you can go to. I took our Portugal tour just a few years ago with Fatima, one other of our guides, and we really enjoy with our tours to hire a Fado group to come and perform for us. And it's such a rich part of the culture. I just can't get enough of it. And, also Portugal has a colonial heritage. And there's a lot of immigrants and people coming in from former colonial Portuguese colonies that adds a little extra flavor and a little extra dimension to the city. Talk about that for a little bit.
We are people from the sea. Since the 1400s, we have the need of going to other continents because we did not have enough here in Portugal. So the period of discoveries took us to India. But to arrive to India, we had to go all around Africa. And of course, that we discover these places. I mean, discover for the European. Of course, this is always discovered. And they were part of Portugal, and they were Portuguese till 1974, April 25th, 1974, which is the date of the revolution here in Portugal. And it was when Salazar, our dictator, gave independence to these colonies.
I didn't realize that. So when you got rid of your fascist dictator, Salazar lasted longer than Hitler and Franco and Mussolini. He was up until 74, but he was sort of that brotherhood of fascist dictators. When you got rid of him and you got your democracy back, was that the end of your colonial empire also?
Exactly. The next day it was started to give all the independencies to Angola, Mozambique, São Tomé and Príncipe, Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau. So many of these countries, they acquired their freedom, their nationality that day. But if the person was born till the 24th of April, 1974, he was Portuguese.
Okay, and there's a lot of colonial influence there.
Yes,
Something that also goes back to the colonial times and the times before refrigeration anyways, is the Portuguese love of cod, which is not even a Portuguese fish. You get it all the way from Norway or Greenland or Newfoundland. But cod, in America, we say, in God we trust. What do you say in Portugal?
In cod we trust.
So what's the big deal about cod?
Cod is basically a fish that you can eat everything on it, from the skin, the tenderloin, the cheeks, the tongue, everything. It's like the pork of the sea. And it becomes a very big fish. It can be more or less this size or even bigger. So it can give food to many people. And the different parts of the cod are used for the 365 ways of cooking it, because you can cook in different ways. And
you know, Christina, I've seen this photograph many times, and I've always thought, oh, there's Pal, our friend. We just were with Pal a couple of nights ago talking about Scandinavia. He's a Norwegian friend and one of our guides also. And now I understand this photograph. The cod is Norwegian, just like Pal.
Exactly.
And you're the Portuguese, just like the people who enjoy the bacalhau.
Exactly.
That's perfect. All right. Well, Portugal has a huge impact by its discoveries, you know. And 500 years ago or so, Vasco da Gama sailed from Portugal around Africa and established a trading route to India. And within one generation of Vasco da Gama's voyage from Portugal to India, Italy's trade plummeted and Portugal's trade multiplied tenfold. And from that point onward, the powerful and wealthy countries were not the countries facing the east like Italy, but they were the countries on the Atlantic seaboard, Spain, Portugal, Holland, England. And it was this outgoing trade. And this is a very important monument just outside of Lisbon in a next town called Belém. And this is, what do we call this? The Belém Tower, right?
Yes, Belém Tower.
This talks about the explorers, the discoverers, led by Henry the Navigator. Why did Henry the Navigator, the guy in the front there, spend so much money funding all of these explorers to go around and plant the Portuguese flag all over the planet? And half of South America speaks Portuguese today.
Well, if you look at the Portuguese map, you will understand. We make part of the Iberian Peninsula, but for us to arrive to the center of Europe, it's very far away, too much inland. So for us, all the opportunities were facing to the sea and, try our way, our lives and adventures to the sea. Arriving to India was a huge challenge because to arrive there, it took us almost 85 years to discover how to go around Africa.
Wow. And today, there's a big part of the whole sightseeing is funded by all of the wealth that came from that trade. For instance, this is one of my favorite churches and monasteries and cloisters anywhere in Europe. It's the Hieronymus Monastery, and it was paid for by a tax on the trade. They called it a spice tax, didn't they?
Yes, a spice tax. And here we have this the cloister of the monastery. Mhm.
Boy, that's beautiful. And the church there where Vasco da Gama is buried. And all of these things, along with an amazing coach museum, are just a few hundred yards apart in that district called Belém. Well worth checking out. And then we go back downtown and we drop into the marketplace and we just have a good time enjoying the taste treats in Portugal. One of my favorites is what your colleague Fatima is offering here. This was the tour that I was on, and I'll never forget coming back from touring all of that church and the cloisters and everything. And Fatima was waiting there with a whole box
Yes,
of the Pastiche de Belém. Tell us about
Yes.
that.
Well, pastéis de Belém is a custard cake, and it is done according to the recipe of the monks of Jerónimos monks. And 1836, when they were expelled from the monastery, they had to make a way of living, and the recipe was no longer a secret. So it's basically, I have one here.
Well, let me see. That's nice.
Yes.
You know, and they've made a lot of money off of me because this is one of my little guilty pleasures when I'm traveling in Portugal is the local people call it the Pastiche de Belém because that's the town it's from. But the general word is pastel de nata.
Then the nata. Nata means cream.
Cream. Oh,
Cream. And Belém is the area from where the recipe is originary from.
And you know, my secret trick for that is the best pastiche de Belém or pastiche de nata is from the bakery that's cranking out the most of them because you get them hot out of the oven and they're very nice when they're still warm.
Oh, they are wonderful.
Now, Portugal is blessed with a wonderful museum. There was a man named Gulbenkian who ran kind of like 5% of all the oil business in the whole world, and Portugal gave him a safe haven during the war, and he was so thankful. He said, "Okay, Portugal, I love you. Thank you very much. You can have all my art as long as you show it to the public." And today, the Gulbenkian Museum is like, whoa, how did this amazing place that would rival what you'd see in London or Paris end up in Portugal? Well, Gulbenkian, that's the name. And it really is, it's an exquisite collection, isn't it?
It's the best private collection in the world, the best and the biggest.
I would believe that.
Yes, it's not Portuguese, is a foundation, is private, but we are so honored that he chose Portugal to host this unbelievable collection of him.
You know, right now, I would like to drink a toast to Gulbenkian. Can you raise your port?
It's my favorite museum in the world.
Saúda.
Saúda.
I like it, Christina, because it's not exhausting and overwhelming. It's just very good examples in a kind of eclectic group. And it's just an amazing experience. Then we get on our bus and we drive a couple hours north and we get to a little town called Óbidos. And look at this little charming, beautiful place. It's a touristy place, kind of, I think, too touristy in the daytime, but we sleep there. And it's so nice to spend the night there. Don't you find it's more relaxing and tranquil after the groups are gone?
Yes, that's why we are sleeping there. And most of the groups aren't, because they are doing most of the groups, they pass through Óbidos in their way up to north or south, but we actually stay there from 5 o'clock on, which is quieter and relaxing, and it's so beautiful.
I was singing fado and writing poetry. It's so romantic, you know.
Yes.
And because I was there for the sunset and the tranquility of the evening, a nice dinner. And then I believe we stayed there 2 nights, but we make a side trip from there with our bus. And that's just, oh, look at this. That's just good planning. It's just such a beautiful part of Portugal. And just a little bit to the north is Nazaré. And I wish I was fancy enough to run a video right now that shows the high surf at Nazaré. But if anybody wants to go to YouTube and just search for Nazaré and surfing, you'll see the biggest waves in the world, won't you?
Oh, yes. It's normally between October and end of February. And they can be actually, I think there is a movie right now called 100 Feet Wave.
I've heard about that.
Yes, and it is in Nazareth. And because it's not in this beach, immediately in front of the town, but after the lighthouse, there is another beach where the soil of the sea forms a fracture. So we call the Cannon of Nazareth. So when the tide gets into that fracture, it creates that big wave, and yes, 100 feet a wave. It's incredible.
The Cannon of Nazareth. I've never heard that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can surf it. I can't surf it.
If you have legs for it.
I remember when I was a kid, I came to Nazaré and I fell in love with it. And the beach was littered with colorful fishing boats. And
yes.
It was great. They would pull the fishing boats in with the oxen, and it was so amazing. And then they built, you can see the marina down there a little bit in the distance. And now all the fishing boats are in the marina, and the people have taken over the beach. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. I love Nazaré. There's our wonderful, what is the cobbles called? Calçada?
Calçada.
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 And there's a few of the boats that are still on the beach as a memory of the time when there was 1,000 boats like that on the beach. And the fishermen are still there mending their nets, and the women are still there hanging out the little fish to dry. And, if you can't afford cod, what do we have as a budget alternative?
Mackerel.
Mackerel.
And mackerel, sardine, bass, greens, they come on pack, and they pass normally in the Portuguese coast. So they are easier to catch, but they are not very big. So that's why the codfish was always an upgrade, let's say, choice. But mackerel could be always every day.
I love eating seafood in Nazaré. It's a tradition for me, and something I always do is I go to a bar and I have a beer and I order a plate of percebes. Some people call them barnacles. Some people call them gooseneck clams or something.
Yes.
Tell me about the percebes. Tell me about these little guys.
Percebes, a person might think that it is they grow on the underneath of the boats or in areas of like the barnacles, but actually they don't. They just grow on the rocks and in very beaten clear waters. So it's very dangerous for the person that makes the harvest of them, because they have a time frame between two tides, and they escalate. They do a rappel going on the rocks, and they have this 3-4 hours to bring as much as they can. So that's why they are so expensive and a delicatessen.
So I think they go in pairs, and they have to rappel down into the rocks, into the surf. It's dangerous. It's very hard work. And consequently, these little delicacies are about the most expensive thing on the menu in a seafood restaurant. And when I go to a bar, I always look for them. And normally I don't go to the top of the menu, but here's one thing that is worth the top of the menu. You get your percebes, and your guide, you will teach the people how to break off the neck skin. And when I was a little kid, we used to bite off the necks of butter clams. And this is much better than that. Okay. From there we go, and we got a lot of the church and the cultural history in Alcobaça. And this is a town where we have a very romantic story about a king and a queen. Tell us what we're looking at here.
We are looking at Pedro, the king. That is one of the elements of this romantic story in Portugal, a true story, and like Romeo and Juliet, but a true story, Portuguese style. Pedro, it passed in the 1300s. Pedro was in love by Inês. He was married to another woman, and when that other woman died, the queen died, he decided that he wanted to marry Inês, but his father did not want it to. So his father decided to kill Inês. When Pedro became a king, he decided to revenge that death of Inês, and in a very creepy way sometimes. and how to revenge from the people that killed Inês, and said to the world, Inês must be treated like a queen, because before she died, we married in secret. So she must be treated like a queen, and it is like a queen that she will be buried side by side with me. Actually, right now they are not side by side, but they were until the 1800s.
And it looks like there's a school group there, all with the same color hats on. They're hearing that same story now, I think, the Portuguese Romeo and Juliet.
Very dramatic.
Very, very dramatic. So many interesting stories to check out when we're traveling. Another great stop is Batala, and that means battle, doesn't it? And this is a big abbey, a beautiful church, amazing architecture that was built to remember a key battle. What was the importance of that battle, just in a nutshell?
Basically, we were on the turn of the first to the second dynasty, and by fighting against the Castilians, the people of Portugal, gave us the honor and the idea of nationality. I think that until that moment, we did not have the idea of a nation per se, or a country per se.
What century was that?
1300s, is 1385.
So 600 years ago, Portugal, yes. I'm sure it was a battle breaking away from or establishing independence from Spanish dominance. And that is a very impressive and important date for the Portuguese people. And when you go there, you get a sense of the importance and the passion that there is in this beautiful culture. Just a few miles away is a place called Fatima. And Fatima is the place of an apparition. And 100 years ago, several little children were out, as shepherds taking care of their flocks, and they saw Mary come with a message in the sky. And it was about peace, and it was about World War I. And the apparition appeared to these children every month for several months, and it got to the point where tens of thousands of people gathered, and they all claimed to have seen the same apparition. And to this day, on the 13th of the month, countless people come to Fatima. And it's if you come there on the 13th, you can hardly get into this square. But any time of year, any time of the month, you will find people there worshiping and remembering the Lady of Fatima. And tourists are more than welcome to visit. And it's quite a powerful visit for our groups, isn't it, Christina?
I think I can say that it's probably one of my favorite places to take our groups, because it's taking a little bit of people from the comfort zone. You see, on the sense that it is very powerful, it's very sensitive, and it's very emotional. And it's nothing to do with religion. In my point of view, it's just seeing people in their inner selves and with their own things. May I take a little bit more time to tell a true story?
Sure.
A bishop of Lisbon, some years ago, a bishop of Lisbon went to Fatima, and he saw this woman walking on her knees, and he was very impressed. So he went to her and asked her and told her, well, I guarantee you that whatever you promised is paid. You can stand up. And she says, looking to him, it's none of your business. It's just between the lady and I.
Oh, the lady and
this is it. This is a true story. And it was with the Bishop of Lisbon from the Catholic Church. So when we see these people walking on their knees and making efforts, tremendous physical efforts, and crying, it is all about an emotional thing. And we cannot be judgmental, because it is their thing. It's not our business. It's their thing. It's just their business, and between them and the lady. They know that.
The Lady of Fatima. And
the Lady of Fatima.
That's the Virgin Mary, isn't it?
Yes, the Lady of Fatima.
And, there's probably 4 places in Europe that are this powerful from a pilgrimage point of view. And it is quite an emotional experience to visit, regardless of somebody's personal religion. And we will go there and check that out. On our way to Coimbra, I love Coimbra because I love university towns. And when you get to Coimbra, there's always things going on with the university students there. And it enlivens the city. And there's a beautiful historical library that's associated with the university, probably the most exquisite library I've ever been in. And they have their own kind of fado singing. And this is the only place where the men sing the fado instead of the women, isn't it?
Yes, because most of the students from university used to be men, and they love to serenade the women, the local women. So
Yeah.
it became a tradition, the serenade or the fado of. Actually, they call the song of Coimbra, and it's talks mainly about love, the city, the university, the river. So the traditions that are related with the city.
And a great thing about being with the tour is your guide can arrange for the group to come by to this little
Yes.
theater, and you basically get a private concert that fits to your schedule just perfectly. And you're there for 45 minutes or an hour. You get to talk to the musicians, and it's just a beautiful cultural and musical experience. One great memory I have, Christina, in Coimbra is going to one of the, what do they call them? The Republicas, the fraternity
Republica.
houses. And I brought a 6-pack of beer, and I was more than
Yeah.
welcome. And we went in, and I just had a whole bunch of friends, and it was just a fun experience to connect with the students in that town. I just love Coimbra. There's plenty to see and do in Coimbra. You can go to the market. Of course, you can go to the market. What are we looking at here, Christina?
Here we can see somebody painting, and it is the local faience or ceramic of Coimbra. It's a glazed, it's like a majolica mostly, and it is glazed, hand-painted ceramic.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then we go up to Porto. And I'm really into second cities all over Europe. Everybody goes to Edinburgh. Why not Glasgow? Everybody goes to Paris. Why not Lyon or Marseille? Everybody goes to Dublin. Why not Belfast? Of course, you got to see the famous places. You got to see Lisbon. But really, you're missing something if you don't see the industrial city, the counterpart of Lisbon, and that would be Porto. And Porto is got a rough edge. It's got a wonderful patina of age. It's a crusty city on a river, and it's got its industry associated with the port wine. It's a city built of granite. When you look around, it's a very stony place. And this is just a chance to walk down the street and be in Portugal. There's nothing particularly important to see or do, just to be there, to be part of the scene. And one thing I find very striking are the beautiful painted tiles inside and out on the churches like this.
Yes, because actually, as you were saying, is granite, and granite is very austere. So imagine just a stone, a church of stone could be too sober, too austere. So let's add some color and some motifs. And like that, the azulejo, that is the name of the glaze tiles, they add color, also decoration, and of course, practicity.
Azulejo. Let's all say that together, please.
Azulejo.
So that is the beautiful tiles of Portugal. And
Yes.
here in the train station, you actually have historic azulejo tiles that are celebrating the heritage of Portugal. And from a whole different age altogether, I believe it's the Art Nouveau period, there's a bookstore. And this is the
Yeah.
only bookstore I know in Europe that charges money to go in and probably makes more money because of its architecture and its fancy staircase than actually selling books. If you go in there to buy a book, you don't have to pay. If you go in there to look at the staircase, you pay a small admission. But it's quite a nice experience, isn't it?
It is lovely. It is, well, the money is, if you buy the book, the money of the ticket is going to be in voucher or refund
That's
with the
good.
book. So
Yeah. Hey, we were talking about port wine. In fact, I'm going to take another sip of my port. Would you like to take a sip?
you're okay.
Oh, baby. That is so
Mm.
good. I really cannot get enough of my port wine when I'm in Portugal. And it's nice even here in Seattle, I'll tell you. Mm. And one thing nice about port for me for the rest of my life, I've seen it made. I've celebrated in its birthplace. Port is from the town of Porto, and these boats are designed to take the wine casks down from the Douro River Valley, which hits the Atlantic at the town of Porto. And they've got these massive casks, and the whole other side of the river from downtown is filled with wine. What do we call them? Caves, port caves.
Caves.
Caves. And there's all the famous
wine
makes. The famous makes are there, and we'll tour those, and we get a chance to taste it and learn about it, and then we go up the river. And this is sort of like the Rhine River of Portugal when it comes to vineyards and so on, except there's really no castles up here. There's just lots of beautiful farms, beautiful terraces, and beautiful families that have spent generations loving the land, loving the heritage, and loving the fruit of the vine. Tell us about our experience when we visit, Christina, one of these. What is the farm called? A quinta?
Quinta de Santa Eufemia.
So
Quinta de
quinta means
Santa
farm.
Eufemia.
So
The
this is
quinta means farm, yes.
farm. Yeah.
And,
What do we do?
Well, we arrive there and they show us the land. We walk on the vineyards. They open their doors. They open their hearts and they open their bottles because we have lunch with them.
And it's a beautiful opportunity to match food from that valley with the beautiful port wine. And they are proud of their wine, aren't they?
Well, I think that this is what it amazes us most is when we see the face of the family and we zipping a little bit of every zip of port wine that we zip, we can see that is labor, work, pride, suffers, but at the same time, we can see the face of accomplishment.
And show me that you've got a bottle with you right now,
Yes.
I think. Can you show us the label? The label is just beautiful. And that is the love and the tradition of generations of that family. And we get to visit them. It's a beautiful experience. I'll never forget being there filming. By the way, I got to go on a tour. I took our exact same tour we're talking about. And it was a great vacation. I was actually working because I was working on the book and I was scouting for the TV show. And then we went back with the TV crew and we've got 2 TV shows. That's an hour that covers pretty much what we do on our itinerary. If you want to look at the Rick Steves Europe TV shows on Portugal, you go to ricksteves.com and you'll see the TV tab. Just click on the TV section and go to Portugal and you'll see all of our TV shows on Portugal. And it's free and it's fast and it's just great. There's the same bottle, Santa Eufemia. And then we go south into Alentejo. Alentejo is the farm country, the cowboy country, the dusty tumbleweeds interior of Portugal, the butt of a lot of jokes. Christina's too polite to tell a lot of Alentejo jokes, but I love those Alentejo jokes, just like I like Norwegian jokes. I like jokes that just make fun of the neighbors. I don't know. And the Alentejo people, well, when you go there, you'll learn all sorts of stories about the Alentejo, but it is a beautiful, very friendly place with a rich culture. This is the main city of Alentejo, Évora, and it's got a Roman temple on it, and it's got winding, characteristic streets, and it's got artisans. This was my guide in Évora, and I remember we were touring the town together, and she had to drop by the shoemaker and pick up her boots there. And she knew the guy, of course, and it's just a very charming, intimate community that as travelers, we can get a sense for. And there's one chapel that is particularly unforgettable, isn't there? Christina, tell us what we are looking at here.
We are looking at the Capela dos Ossos. That means the chapel of the bones. And all of that are feelers, crane, bread. I mean, they are scalps and they are all kind of bones, human bones that are over there. Of course, that people were not killed to make the decoration. It was part of the graveyard and it was on the 18th century and in the Franciscan's order. And it's basically an invitation that they do to us to meditate about life. Although we see here is dead, but it's an invitation to us to meditate about life. What kind of life do we want for us? Because, you know, after all we do in life, we end up in the same way. All of us.
Yep.
So we make a difference is during life.
You know, there's always, I love these bone chapels because they're in monasteries and they're put together by people who are dedicating their lives to getting close to God and reminding us about our mortality. And the message is always similar, you know, you
Yes.
are now what we were then, and you soon will be what we are now, or something like
Exactly.
that. And it's very a thoughtful reminder of how blessed we are to be able to travel and how fleeting life is and how we should get the most out of it and how we should love our neighbors and how there's something waiting for us beyond. And it's a thought-provoking visit. You can find these places all over Europe. One of the most powerful and beautiful is right here in Évora. When we leave Évora, we go through the countryside and we see a lot of trees that have had they've been skinned alive, haven't they? Now, if you skin a person alive, that's a horrible thing. But if you skin a cork tree alive, it just grows back, doesn't it?
Well, Exactly. Well, but it's the same thing for the people. If you skin, it goes, your skin regenerates. And the tree is the same thing. That's why, do you see that they don't do it the whole way? Just
Yeah.
part
Oh,
of
I
it.
see. That's why they don't do it the whole
Mhm.
way. But we
Yes.
visited and we learned that one of you guides, I forget who, but made friends with this family that has an amazing cork farm or orchard, and they're not open to the public.
No.
We book them out, 10 or 15 times, maybe 20 times a year, and they actually designed a trailer for us. This is for our groups. And we come in there and we pile into this thing and we go rumbling through the orchard. And this is one of the sons of the family. And we've all got our little earbuds in as he's explaining to us what we're seeing. And it's all about the beloved cork. And with the cork bark, you make the cork that corks our port wine and all of our wine. And I coveted this when I was there. And I got one of these pieces of cork bark. And I just love how all of the the corks are just popped right out of this. It's so cool. And this weighs nothing. And this is one of the great exports of Portugal.
Yes. Cork is 100% natural product, and nothing is left. So
That's
after
right.
doing the corks, we all the rest are other materials, construction materials.
Oh yeah. And then when you're speaking of nothing is left, that's the same thing with the lunch that they feed us. It is so good. After hiking around through the orchard, and it was a great farm fresh lunch. It was like good country living. And that's one great thing about Portugal is the food that we will enjoy. We've got just a few minutes left here, and I've got a few slides, Christina, about food. Can you tell us what we're looking at here, please?
This we have a shellfish and fish risotto. So it's kind of a soupy, but it's full of flavors of the fish and the shellfish that are cooked with the rice.
Oh, I love eating right next to one of those tile walls with all of the traditional villagers and people who were pulling in the boats and harvesting the sea. And then we are just enjoying the traditional food.
Yes.
We've got the seafood risotto. And this is a different kind of seafood banquet here.
This is a cataplana, and in this case is instead of rice, is with potato and peppers and tomato. But it's still shellfish and fish. And cataplana is the name of the pan itself. So it kind of we close the pan. Yes,
it's made in a characteristic, cooked in a characteristic jug.
Closes like that, like an oyster almost, and it cooks in a very slow.
I'm just remembering all of my beautiful cataplana experiences. Cataplana is a very important word. I probably know 20 words in Portugal, and cataplana makes the top 20. Oh, and so does bacalhau.
Well, I have one here also.
There you go.
There is a bacalhau called beignet or fryer, and it's the perfect snack for half of the morning or in the half of the afternoon, just between the two main meals.
Yep. Remember the little bar that you take me to in front of the Rossio train station?
Yes, in Lisbon? Exactly.
We go in there, have a drink, and have a nice cod ball. It's just
cod ball. Yes.
Cod ball. Gotta love cod balls. And chicken is a big deal. There's a real enthusiasm for chicken with French fries.
French fries, but basically the most important in this photo, it's not the chicken. Well, it's the chicken, but is that little clay thing with a pencil that is here exactly over there, and it is the sauce that makes the difference. Is piri piri. Piri piri is red hot chili pepper. They are small like that, but very, very powerful, and make a wonderful and powerful piri piri sauce, hot sauce.
Piri piri sauce. What country is piri piri from?
From Angola.
Angola, a Portuguese colony.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of colonial leftovers in the cuisine, yes. Of course. Here's another traditional dish we're sure to see on our trip.
And this one is pork pork meat with clams, and of course with cubes of fried potatoes. And carne de porco alentejana is the name of it. And we love in Portugal to make this mixture of flavors and textures. And in this case, pork with clams, it looks like but it's really, really tasty.
It is good, pork and clams. And the national soup?
Caldo verde, so kale. Is kale, the greens is kale, and again we see in this kale soup this kind of little red things, and this chorizo, so the sausage.
Yes, it's all making, and we're right next to Spain, but there's nothing Spanish here. This is distinctly Portuguese, and this is a gut bomb like no gut bomb anywhere in Europe. If there's one heart attack on a plate in Europe that wins the prize, that should come with a coffin, this is it.
You die, but you die happy.
What's it? It's called the Little French Girl or something like that? French?
Yes, Francesinha, the little French. Francesinha. Nothing to do with the French girls. It has to do because the person that invented the recipe came from France, and he was based, he took the idea of a croque monsieur. And so with, the toast with the cheese and the ham, but he made it several layers. So it is the same kind of thing, but with different layers, and put more and adding sausage and ham to it.
You take a croque monsieur in Paris and you quadruple it, and then you blanket it in cheese, and then you pour gravy on it, and you put it in the oven, and you're getting the
francesinha.
The francesinha. Oh, baby. It's something you want to try once in your life. Is that from Porto?
From Porto.
Yeah.
But I always incentivize to people to try it. You might ask to just have half. If you are in two persons, you ask to the waiter that you are going to share, and they already prepare it in the kitchen for you.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'd say if you're 4 people, you could still share it. It's, but it's a great experience. And speaking of great experiences, here you are with 3 of your colleagues, and I just am so thankful for all of our Portuguese guides. You are just wonderful, and we're thankful to have you on our team, along with our wonderful bus drivers. And we just couldn't do our tours without a wonderful team like that. And of course, hardy travelers that really know that if you want to get experiences that'll stick with you for the rest of your life, you need to have a spirit of adventure. You need to you got to get out of your comfort zone, do it with gusto, and ideally do it with an expert who can make sure you know what you're doing and you're doing it right.
Yes.
Oh, man. Hey, Christina, we have questions in just a minute. I know Ben's getting all the questions ready to go, but before we leave the slideshow, can you please just take me through the itinerary here, just like in 1 minute? We started in Lisbon, we finish in Porto.
3 nights in Lisbon, 2 busy days, and then head south to Évora in the peaceful south city, and then our way to Óbidos, and where we stay 2 nights. We do a day trip to Alcobaça Nazaré. Then after Óbidos, we go to Coimbra, but passing and stopping for visiting Batalha and Fatima. And in Coimbra, we'll stay for 2 nights visiting the city. And from there, we go to the mountains, to the north and to the mountains in the breathtaking Douro Valley. We stay there 1 night, and after the Douro Valley, Porto, 2 nights to discover this beautiful north of the country city. After these 2 nights, so it's where the tour ends. So you might decide to stay longer in Portugal and to discover the north of the Portugal, or going to the Algarve, or from there to fly out to any other city or any other tour. Many people do actually back to back.
And I believe you can go from Porto to Lisbon in 2.5 hours by train.
By train, yes.
Yeah. So I like to hear, I just love to hear you do that, because I love to hear the names pronounced correctly. I always mispronounce them, but it's just great to hear those names pronounced correctly. I want to remind everybody that when you take a Rick Steves tour, you get all of your group sightseeing included it's at no extra cost because you're paying for it in advance. But I like that because you are on board when you take our tour. You don't need to pay extra for things. You get a small, friendly group of people, like 24 to 28 people on a 50-seat bus. So you really have 2 seats per person, basically. You get the full-time services of a professional Rick Steves guide like Christina or one of her colleagues, and a lot of local experts that we hire as we go along. Christina could give every tour on the whole route, but we like to hire local guides so we get a different voice and a different perspective. All group transportation is included, all accommodations in memorable, centrally located hotels. Memorable, that means characteristic, that means funky, that means not high-rise American style, that means local style, and that's the Rick Steves style, and it's right in the location that you want it to be. Location is so important for us because we like to step right out of the hotel and be in the action. You get all your breakfasts and half your dinners included, and we feel as a matter of principle that all the tips should be covered in advance. We tip very well, and it is included in the cost of your tour. So that gives you a sense of what is included on a Rick Steves tour. And I want to remind you once again, we've got over 100 episodes of TV shows that cut Europe into 100 half-hour slices. And if you're interested in any part of Europe, and if you're wondering what we do on our tours in any part of Europe, hey, the tours and the TV shows and the guidebooks are all part of the same system. Many of the TV shows are done with the help of our local guides like Christina. She's helped me with the TV crew. Just go to ricksteves.com, go into the TV section, and check out what you like. Remember, we are very, very enthusiastic about people doing our tours without us. And you can do our tours without us by getting your hands on the book. The Portugal book is out in its brand new edition. It just arrived this month, and it's totally up to date now. And you can also remember that we've got Audio Europe. This is a free app. You just, search for Rick Steves Audio Europe in the App Store, or you can get it through ricksteves.com. This is free. This has 65 tours, including tours in Lisbon, and this lets you stick me in your ear, and we do it together. It's just a lot of fun. It works great, and tens of thousands of people are enjoying this free source of information that we like to provide to our travelers all over Europe. I do want to remind you, if you go to our website, and I'm going to take you there right now just for a moment. If you go to our website, it's simple to find, ricksteves.com. And here you will be able to check out a whole pile of free information. All of our information here is free. Click the TV tab and you got all the TV shows we've ever made. Click the radio tab and you got 500 hours of radio archives. Lots of shows on Portugal you could find. This is the Monday Night Travel tab where we're coming up on our 100th episode of Monday Night Travel. That will be the first Monday in February, where I meet Fred Plotkin and we talk about our new book called Italy for Food Lovers. Classroom Europe takes our 100 TV shows and breaks it into 500 little teachable tiny clips so that teachers can use it. Travel Forum is a complete community of travelers getting together and sharing information. Of course, if you go to our tours, you'll find all the latest. You can learn about our tours in so many different ways because we want the right people to get on our tours, not just anybody. We don't sell our tours via travel agencies. We don't advertise just to get anybody. We let people know very candidly and honestly what our tours are like. They're definitely not for some people, and they're definitely right for a lot of other people. You click on whatever program you're looking for. Here, out of our 40 different itineraries, we have our Portuguese tour, and you can click on that, and you can find out how many tours are available on that one. And let me just get to that. And here you see the heart of Portugal, what Christine and I have been talking about. I'm sorry to say, I'm happy to say, most of our tours are sold out for Portugal. If you look at this list, you can see all of our departures for 2023, and most of them are just join the wait list. Join the wait list is not the end of the world. If you're curious about the tour and you really want to go in October, you can join the wait list. And if we have enough demand and we can get guides lined up in buses and hotels, we will add another tour. If somebody has to cancel out, you'll be on the wait list and you'll just jump right on. We're going to be doing all this again in 2024. And I checked in with my staff today, and there is one tour with lots of seats open, June 21st. It's only half full at this point if you wanted to do Portugal this year. But there's lots of information on our tours. The last thing I want to show you is if you go to Festival of Europe, that's what we're 1/3 of the way through. I want to remind you that all of the events that you may have missed, last Tuesday, we had Venice, Florence, and Rome. Wednesday, we had England. Thursday, we had Spain. Friday, we had Scandinavia. And Saturday we had Switzerland. Yesterday, on Monday, I gave an irreverent history of Europe through the back door. I even yodeled. I got carried away and I yodeled. Today we're Portugal. And then you can see here all the classes coming up. All you got to do to register, it's free, it's easy, it's quick. You just go there and put your name on the list. So that is what we've got going on with our website. And I do want to remind you that we've got a lot of books that are worth checking out. One I'd particularly mention is the Italy for Food Lovers book. This is our brand new book. It just came out this month. I've been working on it right now because I'm going to be interviewing Fred Plotkin in 2 days for our radio show. He's my co-author. And I got to say, that book is, in all modesty, amazing. Let me grab it for you. It's right here. If you're interested in Italian food, like so many of us are, this is something we're very proud of. And it is hot off the press. And this is designed to complement our guidebook. And even if you're not traveling, to know more about Italian food makes a lot of sense. Other projects that we've had during COVID, I wrote a book called For the Love of Europe, which is a 400-page collection of my 100 favorite European experiences. This is not a guidebook. This is a collection of travel experiences. This is my favorite travel writing put together. It's a dream of mine for many years that I've wanted to do. And these are my favorite experiences in Europe, designed to stoke your travel dreams. That's called For the Love of Europe. Another book that we've produced during COVID is 100 Masterpieces, Europe's top 100 masterpieces. This is a companion book for our art series. And we had so much fun, my co-author and I, Jean Openshaw. We picked our 100 favorite pieces of art and then wrote a carefully crafted essay, 700 words for each essay. And you can just sit there and dream and marvel your way through the story of European art as soon as you watch our 6-hour series on art that's airing all over the United States on public television, Rick Steves' Art of Europe. That's brand new. If you missed it on public television, you can go to our website and watch the whole 6 hours there. And my staff has explained to me that the 2023 calendars are now formally on the push list. We've got 50 of these left, and we've got 20 of these left, and they're half price. They're $8.50 each. So this is the day by day, and it's got all sorts of travel wisdom with each day, with a beautiful photograph and a little nugget of travel information. At the end of the year, you'll be not just a Europhile, you'll be a Euro expert. And this you can hang on your wall, and it's got all the American holidays and all the European holidays with some great photographs. If you need a calendar for this year, be the last person on your block to get it, because that's going to be sold out, I would imagine, by tomorrow. All right. So with that, I'm just going to see what else we have here. Once again, you'll get an email tomorrow, and that has a link where you can sign up for the free tour, and you can join Spencer Swank from Michigan. It was so much fun to draw that name out of my money belt, and I'll do it again next Monday. If you sign up for any tour during our festival, that's from now till the end of the month, you get $100 off. And tomorrow, we're going to Scotland, and there are 2 itineraries to Scotland, a long one and a short one. And we've got lots of travel coming up because we've got lots of great guides. All right. Hey, Ben, I think we're ready for some questions from our Portuguese guide, Cristina Duarte.
All right, Rick. Well, thank you, Rick and Cristina, for stoking our travel ambitions with Francesina. I'm ready. Our fellow travelers kept us busy tonight with some great questions. I'd like to start with one from George. He's wondering, how has Portugal changed since your childhood, Cristina, and since you first started traveling there, Rick?
Well, I'll start off on that, because when I first started traveling, Cristina, there were no freeways in Portugal. When we left Lisbon, it was a little road to get up to Nazaré. And Portugal was it was sort of like the country in Europe that felt like the third world. And it has really come a long way. Portugal it was sort of mothballed because of Salazar and the fascist government until the mid-1970s. And I remember the celebration just in the streets, every society, after having all this lack of freedom, to be tied up. It's like birds in cages. And then when Salazar was gone, craziness. It was just amazing. The downside of that is people didn't know how to handle all the freedom, and Portugal became a country with a very serious hard drug addiction problem. And Portugal is very innovative, And the Portuguese were the first people in Europe to legalize all drugs, the consumption of all drugs. And they took the crime out of the equation, and they treated it like a health challenge and an education challenge. And they gave people addicted to hard drugs counseling, and they gave them compassion. And today, Portugal is a leader in the world in pragmatic harm reduction when it comes to serious opioid problems, rather than legislating morality and mass incarceration like we're so good at here in the United States. If I could just give you a little political message from one dimension of Portugal that inspires me to no end. But long story short, Christina, how has Portugal changed for you in the time you've been working?
Well, when I started to work, it was in 1989, and there was only 23 kilometers of highway. And right now we have all the country covered with probably the best highways of, I would say, of Europe. I mean, concerning the territory that we have. It changed a world. It changed from night to day to night and night to day. Mm-hmm. And we had almost 50 years of dictatorship. It was 48 years of dictatorship. And then, of course, that the things change, and especially, as you said, the day after the revolution. This exactly year, it was for me very emotional, because this year we are not celebrating 50 years over the end of the dictatorship, but we were celebrating the first year that we have more days of democracy than the dictatorship. So it's the first time that I say this without crying, because this is very emotional. And the 26th of April, 2023, we actually had one day more of democracy.
Oh, and I got to say, one beautiful thing about travel is you get to talk to people that have not always been free.
Yes.
And you get to talk to people that really recognize the value of their freedom and their democracy and how fragile it is. And I hear Americans talking about civil war, and I hear Americans talking about how democracy doesn't work. And I would just say, hey, you got to travel. You got to talk to people who know, who've been around the block. And then you'll come home and you will embrace good governance, and you'll embrace pluralism, and you'll be thankful, and you'll defend your democracy to the end.
Yes.
Portuguese people would do that. They can teach us all a lot.
Yes.
Our next question comes from Cindy. She's wondering, what is your favorite festival or holiday in Portugal?
Can I?
Oh, it's all yours, all yours.
Okay. So for me, of course, it's Sant Antonio. It's the 13th of June. So Sant Antonio was born in Lisbon and died in Italy. So I can say that he's Portuguese by birth and Italian by death. But and we
you
celebrate.
Can see him. All the pilgrims go to the Basilica of St. Anthony in Padua, which is half an hour from Venice. It's a great site. We just talked about it the other day with David Tordi right here. And I've been in the Alfama in Lisbon on St. Anthony's Day.
Exactly.
That's the neighborhood block party.
The most amazing, and all over the month of June, we celebrate different saints. So we call it the month of the patron saints. Lisbon is the 13th with Sant Antonio, and São João is in Porto with the 24th of June. So June is absolutely the month of all the festivals.
Nice.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Lisette is wondering, how do you find good fado in Portugal? What are your tips?
I wouldn't say there is fado that is better than the other to your ear, but not to your heart. Because fado, as we were telling, it is a spontaneous and a heart. It's like your heart having a voice. So sometimes your voice might be not that melodic, but it is straight from there. And it's difficult to say that there is a restaurant or a cafe or a bar that promotes fado better than the other, because you have actually voices that are more melodic than the others. So I would not know how to answer what it is the best if I don't know what it is the worst.
You know, that was such a poetic, beautiful, thoughtful answer. And I think it reminds people that fado is a very important part of the Portuguese experience. Even though it's a touristy thing to a certain degree, it's also an honest thing. It's fundamental. It would certainly be there with passion, with or without tourism. From a practical point of view for a tourist, because I'm really into fado, you go to the museum at the base of the Alfama, you go to the Fado Museum, and then you can hear videos and audio tapes of the greatest fado singers ever. You learn about the cultural roots of it and so on. And then in the Barrio Alto, and this would all be in a particular guidebook that I know and love, you have a company that gives a touristy 1-hour fado show. And it's before your bedtime, and it costs you $20. And you go to this little theater and you see all of the stuff you should see for fado. That's okay. You see it on stage, you hear fado, it's decent quality. But as Christina said, it really is salt to the earth, neighborhood, organic, from the ground up culture. And you just need to find a little restaurant. And you find a restaurant and you find 3 stools, and you find the wait staff and the cooks that take turns singing, and you find local people and a couple of adventurous tourists, and you have a $8 plate of sardines, and you look into the eyes of that singer. I've spent a whole evening looking into an eyes of a 75-year-old widow with a plunging neckline, and a world of experience, and a world of tears, and a world of love. And I was so into that moment. I was so into that woman. I couldn't understand a word she was saying.
Yes.
But I was there and I experienced fado. Any tourist can do that. But you're not going to do it with 3 tour buses going to a touristy place. You're going to do it by finding a funky little restaurant. It's usually free. You just got to buy some food there, and you've got it spontaneously combusting. And it can be in Lisbon, and it can be in smaller towns around. Christina, I think one of my favorite fado evenings was in Évora. There's a wonderful little family that does fado in Évora. So put it on your list when you go to Portugal. And when you take a Rick Steves tour of Portugal, you can rest assured your guides will make sure you have a fado experience.
That is beautiful. Thank you, Rick and Christina. We have time for just one more question, and it comes from Christina, another Christina. When you look back at your years of tour guiding in Portugal, what is your most impactful memory or favorite wow moment?
Oh, there is a tough one, because it is 30 years. I graduated in the tourism school, so I'm a certified guide since 1989. So you see, it's more than 30 years of memories. But still today, I get nervous always on the first day, on the first hour when I meet my group. It's always I get nervous, and after 30 and something years of experience, and the last day when I leave my group, I always have tears, because I still do what I like and what I choose. So it's very difficult to know actually one moment. Probably having more time, it will come up to my mind, but right now it's just these 2 moments. I get nervous and I get sad, but not sad on the bad way, sad of nostalgia, of saudade.
So yeah, I'm not even gonna dirty up that beautiful message from Christina with my thoughts on my favorite moment. I'm just gonna reiterate, I'm so proud to be running a tour company with my name on it when I have 100 guides like Christina who get nervous after 30 years. Because they're so committed to giving these precious travelers the experience of a lifetime. And after 10 days, 15 days, 20 days together, when they have their last group hug, there's tears in their eyes.
Yeah.
Why can't your travel dreams be like that? You know, that's to me what we aspire to, and we do it thanks to our guides like you and your colleagues, Christina. So Thank you, Christina. Now you can go to bed. It's a little bit past your bedtime. I know you Portuguese are night owls, but this is pretty late for you. Ben, thanks for moderating. Christina, I hope to see you in Portugal really soon. Thank you so much.
So.
Obrigado.
Obrigada.
And to all of you, thank you for joining us today on our travel festival. And we hope to be a part of your travels as you turn your travel dreams into smooth and affordable reality. Happy travels. We'll see you soon. Thank you.